I'm Brad Hutchings, and this is the Break It Down Show. I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm so happy for John and Pete coming up on 1,000 episodes. At an hour each, that's about 30 days of listening at 1.5x speed just to catch up. For those of you getting started, John is a drummer, and Pete is a veteran in a tent. They have guests. You can watch live on YouTube, Facebook, and GeoCities, or listen a few months later on 8-track tape. They have a team in Albonia transcribing each episode into unified Klingon. They put the multi in multimedia. Today, John and Pete have Arson and Rench from the hip-hop bluegrass ensemble Gangstagrass. Without giving away all the good parts, there are two things in this episode that really struck a chord with me. First, they've been at this for more than 10 years, mixing hip-hop and bluegrass. That's dedication. That's the equivalent of John and Pete doing like 2,743 episodes. I, on the other hand, am a fail early and fail often guy. If I were Rench and had started with hip-hop and bluegrass, I'd now be on mouth harp and yodeling with a notable excursion into whoopee cushions and haiku. But we'd have the best equipment, and there would be no noise in our home studio recordings. Second, Rench gives the best advice that I didn't follow in this episode. Name yourself after a tool. In my previous career providing tech support for the people of India, I had to pick an Indian name. The finalists were Atul and Vijay. I went with Vijay Panir Swami Jr., or as my customers called me, VJJ. In retrospect, I really should have picked Atul. Literally none of this about me is true, but it is true in my comedy. When this whole COVID thing ends after the next election, come see me battle drunks with my wit and my guitar at your local dive bar. For now, listen to this great conversation with John, Pete, Rench, and Arson, and give Gangstagrass a listen on Spotify or YouTube. They're catchy. Before I leave, I'd like to tell you about the Break It Down Show's favorite charity, Save the Brave. 2020 has been a rotten year. One of the few highlights for me was following Pete's and Scott's cross-country adventure to pay tribute to a fellow serviceman and friend on Facebook and Instagram, and meeting up with them in Temecula when they returned. I signed up when they first asked us to donate a few dollars each month on their website, savethebrave.org. That is true, you can check the tape. If you are able, I would appreciate if you would do the same. Thank you. Now here's John and Pete with Rench and Arson from Gangstagrass. Enjoy.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Morata.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Yo, what's the deal? It's your man Arson, the voice of reason from Gangstagrass, a.k.a. the Super Trouble from Black Tribbles. You're here with the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
That's right. A minute ago, we had a plan. It's already changed. John has technical difficulties, so we're waiting for him to pop back in. We're also waiting on Rench. There's John. He's coming in.
I don't know what that was about, but today featuring Gangstagrass. And
what is going on?
I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, for our listeners, their new album is called Nickel and Dime Blues, but you should also reach back to last year and Pocket Full of Fire, Gangstagrass Live. What were you about to say?
I'm going to interrupt. The new album is actually called No Time for Enemies. Nickel and Dime Blues was the first single.
That was the first single. Okay. I stand
corrected. The new album is called No Time for Enemies.
No Time for Enemies. But I also want to say what Noisy Magazine said about you. Marrying beats, banjos, and bars, this Brooklyn act is pioneering bang and twang. And that, I think, encapsulates what you guys are doing. And I'm going to add by saying this. We are living in some divisive times.
To say the
least. In the United States of America, and Gangstagrass is everything that is right.
So Rench was the guy that put this whole thing together. That's why we call him the mastermind. He was the one that gave birth to the whole idea of Gangstagrass and everything that happens, everything that we do, right? And, you know, coming from a very sort of traditional country and bluegrass background from his dad and all, he came up in the 80s, like a lot of us did, when hip hop was really starting to blow up. And so he was very interestingly sort of enmeshed in the two cultures, right? And so when he started making music, that was just his thing. It was just the easiest thing in the world for him to create in both of those realms. And, sampling stuff with banjos and fiddles and that kind of thing. And a lot of cats weren't really about it. So he was like, all right, I'll do it myself. and gave birth to a whole new genre of music. I tell people all the time, I'm just lucky to be a part of it.
Wow. So let's talk about how the pieces came together. So this is, so Rench comes up with this idea. He's able to execute on it. How does he pull all the players together?
Well, all right. So the current lineup right now, because we've been through a few different players. We had a dobro player. We had a couple of dobro players, one of which was with us for the longest, our dear friend Landry. But Rench and the other MC in the band, Dolio the Sleuth, they were in a band together. It was called B-Star, which became Battlestar America, which was short for Battlestar America. It was a little bit more honky-tonk based. And when Rench put Gangstagrass together with the brother T.O.N.E.Z that was on he's the guy that did the verses on the song Long Hard Times to Come, the Justified theme song. T.O.N.E.Z wasn't able to go on tour. And so Rench wanted to take the band on tour. He reached out to Dolio. Now, Dolio and I, we've known each other for 20 years, and we met in a cypher up at Penn State University where I went to school. We were just out on the street rhyming together and was kind of impressed with each other's abilities and stayed cool all that time. So Rench reached out to Dolio. Dolio couldn't go, but then Dolio called me. He was like, yo, my man Rench is trying to do this thing. He put me and Rench together. We did a show. We met on a Wednesday night here in Philly. Shout out to Philadelphia, repping the Philadelphia all day, every day. We did a show that night on a Wednesday night, and then I got in a van with those guys with the band at the time and drove down to North Carolina that night. We did 3 shows that weekend, and just sort of, then it was sort of born as a traveling collective. And throughout the last 9, it'll be 10 years in April. About the last 10 years, we've gone through a few different collections of people, but we found a couple that really have become a part of the stable. Our banjo player, Dan Whitener, has been with us for about 6 years almost. Yeah, it'll be 7 years this year. We found him on Craigslist. No lie, man.
Okay.
He reached out to, Rench had put an ad up on Craigslist, and Dan showed up and did his thing, man. He's amazing. He's a fantastic songwriter. He wrote Nickel and Dime Blues, his verses in the chorus on that. He wrote Never Go Home Again. That's one of his. And so he's been doing all this, had been doing all this kind of stuff for a while. He actually put out an EP a couple years back called Crossover. There's a song on there called We Are Gonna Be Okay that Spike Lee actually optioned for the movie Black Klansman. So it's it's on the soundtrack to Black Klansman. And so we've all been sort of doing our own thing, as well as creating this Gangstagrass movement, as it were. Our new guy, Brian Farrow, our fiddle player, he used to play with Don Flemons. Okay. And so we're coming from all different angles and all different areas. He's actually a bass player. His bass is disturbingly good. And but we had seen him play fiddle. We needed a new fiddle player, and he came on with us, did a couple shows, and just sort of meshed right into the group.
I want to ask a couple of questions too. And first off, I want to say, man, thank you for doing this. Like John said, we talked about this several times. Like, we keep having the same conversation because it's such a cool thing you guys are doing. I really think bluegrass is, in some parts of the country, it's the people's music. Rap in some parts of the country is the people's music. So of course this all goes together. And then when you look at how it goes together and everything, why didn't someone think of this 25 years ago? It's just, it works so well. So one, thanks for doing this. And two, what took Rench so long?
Hey, folks.
Hey, Rench.
What's happening? Hey.
There he is.
Yes. What's up?
Great question.
I think what takes us so long is just how deeply ingrained this impression people have is of them being so different, that they just don't make that mental connection, even though musicians have been cross-pollinating all the time. Everything from the Aerosmith Run DMC collaboration to all kinds of cross-pollinations that happen, but nobody says, oh yeah, actually everything can go together. It's all connected. We still maintain this idea that there's these silos of different genres.
Yeah, we've been singing the praises, but I've been saving this little story for when you came on, Rench, so I didn't say it until now. But so when we come across new artists on this show, I'm a drummer, lifelong musician, and totally into a lot of bands that mold stuff together. You know, grew up, my dad was really into Santana. And so the big bands where there's a lot of collaboration from a lot of directions, you know, I love Ozo Motley,
Nice.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
sure.
I was not familiar with you guys. So when we booked the show, I started listening and I was going, holy shit, how I'm the biggest fan of exactly what you guys are doing in the way that you're doing it. How have I been unfamiliar for this long? So I just first, before I ask the question, I'll say that whatever you guys are doing, I'm down 100%, and I'm gonna help you promote whatever you're doing, because, you know, like I said at the beginning of the show, we live in divisive times, and you guys are everything that is right. You guys are all about the collaboration, all about bringing your roots to the thing and making a stew that makes sense to everybody and that brings cultures together. And so, as you guys, you know, every band is challenged. But as soon as you bring in more people, you multiply the challenges.
Yeah.
How have you, and I know that collaborators have come and gone and that the band has evolved in terms of the players, but how do you hold it all together?
Sometimes it's just a matter of just letting things happen, you know, getting the people in the room and then stepping back and letting it go. It just providing the framework a lot of times is enough. And trusting that it's not all going to blow up and go off the rails.
Okay. Rench, how did you get to Brooklyn?
I went to NYU, so I was in New York, and I moved to Brooklyn pretty quick, and decided I love Brooklyn. So I stayed in Brooklyn, and there's just any kind of music you want is here. Everything is going on, and a lot of people are surprised that there's country music in New York. But when you have 8 million people, like you name it, there's some people doing it. It's just more of a needle in the haystack thing because there's so much going on. But it was the perfect place to be able to go and connect to a country scene and a hip hop scene and everything in between, and start getting people to play together.
Arson, how familiar were you with bluegrass before your relationship with Rench started?
A little bit. My dad has always been kind of broad in his musical taste. So he was a big Charlie Daniels guy. He's a big Jim Croce fan, right? So it was like way on the outskirts, like the most sort of pop related sort of thing. But getting into it was easy because you had some of that same feel. You know what I mean? A lot of that storytelling stuff, a lot of the real is high level instrumentation. You know what I mean? It wasn't that difficult for me to get. My dad, for some reason, my mom and dad were both really big Dolly Parton fans. And so, you know, it was there anyway, you know, and my dad was also a big Kenny Rogers fan. So that whole like a lot of the storytelling aspects of it was already there for me anyway. It wasn't hard. It was nothing that I was like, oh no, I don't like that at all. It was really simple to sort of get involved in.
I could see that. I could see Coat of Many Colors being a rap like that some dude sings, you know. I mean, it's the same. Sure. Again, it's the same kind of music, you know. I wanted to ask, when you are trying to put this together, right, and you're trying to sell this thing, people that get it. Cindy got it, right? She listened to it. She gets what you guys do. That helps. But people, they got to have babies. They got to have, you know, healthcare and all these things. And you've got this eclectic mix. How hard is it to find the elements for something that's never been made before? Like, how do you know when something is right? Yeah, you can play the fiddle. Yeah, you can play the dobro, but are you right for this band? And then are you going to be here in 3 years, or do you need to go get a job, you know, driving a backhoe or something?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially now that there's no touring going on, you know, there is a question of how are we going to support ourselves? And that is something that is sort of constantly on the table in terms of finding revenue. We do have a subscription service now where we're giving people behind the scenes stuff, special access, and all kinds of goodies called the Barnstormers. So if they go to gangstagrass.com/barnstormers, they can sign up even for $4 a month to be a supporter, and they're going to get all kinds of cool downloads and stuff. So just being creative like that. Right now, I think the crew of 5 musicians that we have is really solid, and it's really a matter of us looking at you know, whatever comes up, just being in it together to try to find a way to make it through. Banjo, the banjo player, is a new father, so he's actually on leave right now, and we're just gonna make sure everybody's able to do what they need to do. And the elements are there. You find a fiddle player that can do things the right way, and a banjo player. It's hard to define what the right way is, but I can hear whether I'm hearing what I need to hear in terms of my taste, what I'm trying to create. Whether they're playing bluesy notes, whether they're able to play in certain styles. And once I have those elements, we put it out, and I love it. And then there's just the challenge of marketing to something like this. Is that there's no existing market for it. You can't go and say, okay, well, put us in front of all the people that went to all the bluegrass hip hop festivals or read the bluegrass hip hop magazines. So that's the really tricky part, is finding ways to make this successful when you're out there on your own with no comparable, other bands or infrastructure or anything to plug into to find your audience.
I never really thought about it like that. Nice. You're something else. See, this is why I hang out with this dude, man. Every time I hear him talk, there's something new. Like, I hadn't even considered that. Being sort of the only ones doing it the way we do it.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you? It is a thing that we've encountered a lot. Like, where would you put us, right? Mm-hmm. And I've always said, put us wherever you want, but don't put anybody on after us. Never a good thing, man. Like, the only cat that ever really, really rocked it after us was like Willie Nelson's son.
Lucas Nelson rocked it.
Lucas Nelson. Yeah, he crushed it. He crushed it. But you're never going to get from us a just sort of, okay. Like, you put us in front of whoever you want, you're going to get the fire, regardless of who it is or where we're at.
And to be fair, Lucas Nelson basically was born on the road. I mean, his dad would shove him out there with the mic and be like, "I'm going to take a break. Here's my boy." And then he would sing Red House or something like that. And you're like, that kid's 8. So
that's what it takes.
He's been out there forever. You guys are on a new band. You're 10 years into this thing.
Yeah.
How do you, it's like Reba McEntire when she finally made it as a new artist, 20 years into her career. Do you guys feel like that's kind of your trajectory, that you continue to break out and find new audiences and you're growing and growing, but still have a lot of growing to do?
Until the point that, like, we hit something and suddenly everything explodes and we're super mega stars, the plan will be to just keep it moving along little by little, growing the fan base in hand-to-hand combat. To one side of the coin or another, whether you think we're slowly winning people over and just keep going, or we don't know when to quit. We haven't thrown in the towel. We're just like, okay, we're still here. This year was better than last year, and next year we bring in a little bit more. And so each round we kind of come back, make a few improvements in what we're able to do, what we know how to do, build more skills, build more fans. We were looking forward to a really amazing 2020 with the new album coming out. We had some amazing tours lined up, some incredible opportunities. And we still pulled a lot of what we could pull out of it in terms of getting the album out and getting it to #1 on the Bluegrass charts. So that's a new peg there that we've reached, and that kind of stuff. New videos that we're putting out that we're getting more views on than we've gotten before. So all in all, we see the numbers going up little by little each year.
What has the pandemic done for your creative process?
It's put it through the ringer. We were really set on having the new album be something that we recorded together in person and really played on that live energy of the fact that, we've been doing so many shows together. We can do this thing and bring a lot to it in terms of playing together in a room and playing off of each other. And we only got 3 songs recorded that way and then had to go into lockdown. So the challenge then was the idea of still trying to bring that energy and get everybody recording separately and then mix it together. And so Arson, you talk about the fact, he's a good example of somebody who didn't even have something to record on.
I had nothing. I had this microphone. That was it. that was connected to nothing. I bought this microphone on the road last year from our people at Ear Trumpet Labs out in Portland, just because I love the sound on it. It moves around and does all this cool stuff. But I took it to one of the recording sessions, and when everything shut down, I was like, well, here I am with this microphone plugged into nothing. And then, next thing I know, stuff's coming in the mail, and the mic stand shows up, and, my input, John, and all this, and I got all these wires and stuff, and I spent several days trying to figure out how to record, it was a nightmare. I had no idea what I was doing, but Dan got me through it. Rench got me through it. Couple of IT people got me through it, and we were able to really finish up the whole thing. As a matter of fact, I finished a lot of that. I finished some stuff on my solo album. Like all kinds of stuff got done just because we were shut down, and we were like, all right, we want to get this finished. Let's get it wrapped up. And the fellas came through for me big time because I was stuck. I was like, well, here I am.
Yeah. But that's that had to happen because we were putting this album together. Got to get our son's stuff on it. He's critical, and so that was our big challenge, was keeping the creativity going to get over these technical hurdles with us all being separate in separate spaces. And in some ways, there were new things that came out of it. We started doing some live streaming and did some things that we call kick the can, where one person would live stream themselves laying down a part of something, an idea that they had.
Yes.
And then the next live stream will be the other person taking that audio and adding the next layer to it. And we build a song over 4 or 5 live streams. And one of them actually ended up on the album because we liked it so much.
Yeah.
It was a song called Do Better that Brian Farrow, fiddle and bass player, he actually laid down a bass line. And then the next night, I think Dan was putting some banjo on that on the live stream. And then I put a beat to it and came up with a hook for the chorus. It just went on from there. We built that, and people were able to actually watch on our Twitch stream each layer that was added as we wrote that song, basically.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the things that are way inside, and when your fans can get access to that kind of content, the building process, I think it gives them a little more. It gives you an opportunity to show the personality a little more. Random question, but can you explain the difference between a violin and a fiddle?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You want to? Okay. This is what I got to tell you is that a fiddle has strings. No, a violin has strings, and a fiddle has strangs.
Okay.
So other than that's pretty much it. You play something different on them, but the physical instrument is pretty much the same.
So it's how you use the instrument.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've never seen a fiddle at the opera. I've always seen that.
Yeah. That's what
you saw a fiddle there. You just didn't know it.
You saw a fiddle. You just didn't see anybody fiddling.
They were playing their violin. They wasn't.
There's the difference. They wasn't fiddling.
And then when you guys are doing this live form of creation, like these great lyrics, like you can't, like in the Nickel and Dime Blues, how you can't afford to have the blues, so you got no money. Who comes up with those great lines, and is that also iterative and collaborative?
Well, we're blessed to have 5 great writers on this team right now, who all have they have their solo projects where they're writing entire songs that are great. And Nickel and Dime Blues was one from Danjo that he basically put together and sent me a draft of it with all those lyrics and everything. And I said, boom, this is in. We're definitely going ahead with this. And that was just a matter of producing it from there, adding the beats, having the MCs make some verses. He wrote that, and he's written a lot of great stuff. He wrote a song from his own EP called "We Are Going to Be Okay" that Spike Lee used in the Black Klansman movie. Basically, we're all full of ideas and bring stuff to the table, and then it's just a matter of letting everybody else add their piece to it.
Talk about your influences in Philly, growing up, coming up as an MC.
So I wrote my first rap. I tell people this all the time. I wrote my first rap when I was 6 years old. I was on the school bus with my friend Quincy. This was 79. So he was Master Q. I was Disco G. And as a matter of fact, the first line of the song was, he was like, I am Master Q and I am Disco G and we're kicking it live as you can see. That's the first, that was the beginning of the joint. It was cool just coming up, like being born. My birthday is 2 weeks after, what they kind of consider the birthday of hip hop, after one of those parties up in the Bronx at Cedric and Cedar. So hip hop and I are about the same age, and so coming up in the midst of it and listening and growing with it, and becoming a part of it. My brother put me on to a lot of stuff when I was a kid, and then in high school I had a buddy named Craig that used to rap, and I used to rap with him. My man Craig, he went by Gray Boy, and then I went to Penn State. and I encountered all these there was this amazing collective of DJs and MCs from all over the place. My man Louis Logic really got me started rhyming. You know, he was like, you know, we would go to the radio station, just hang out and freestyle a little bit. He was like, man, you're pretty good. Like, you should do something with this. And so him and my man Shanti, who we're actually working with again right now, he put together the video for Freedom. We had a crew together. My man JJ Brown up there had a studio, and it was in his apartment 5G. So it was 5G studios. And, you know, we built some stuff up there. Me and my partner Ad Liberal put out an album in 2003. We had a crew called the Flight Brothers. And so it's been, you know, just a constant, been around a lot of very dope cats my whole life. And I'm blessed to have encountered some of just amazing dudes here in Philly. My man Reef the Lost Cause is one of my favorite MCs. Obviously Black Thought, the greatest of all time, just sort of existing in the same universe with that guy makes you want to stop writing completely and then pick up your pen and step your game up. And just hanging out with Dolio, like Dolio keeps me sharp. We'll be doing stuff and he'll write a verse and I'm like, all right, well, I gotta let me step this up a little bit. Let me change it, because he's so good and so smart, and so it helps me kind of, you know, we always say steel sharpens steel, man. And so that he just being in the same arena with a lot of these cats keeps me sharp and keeps me wanting to write and constantly create some new stuff and becoming a part of Gangstagrass, because I had stopped doing music for a while. You know, my daughter was born and I wasn't really doing a lot musically. I was still writing, and every now and again I would just, you know, get on stage at this bar I used to work at, but nothing major. And then when I went on tour that first weekend with Gangstagrass, it really did bring me back to life. I was like, I forgot how much I loved being on stage and doing this rhyme stuff. And so it's just a lot of all of that stuff. It just kind of kept me flowing and kept me going. All my stuff back here, all my comic book stuff, that's a constant source of inspiration. And, you know, my kids and just all that stuff together just keeps my pen going.
I love this story. Rench, same to you. Tell us about how you got started.
I've just been into music for a long time. I took violin lessons when I was little and did some fiddling and stuff. And I grew up with a lot of country music playing on the stereo at home because my dad's from Oklahoma. And he actually played me a lot of Graham Parsons stuff as well, Flying Burrito Brothers. I think that all like seeped in there. But when I was in grade school was when hip hop really exploded across the country with the breakdancing stuff, the breaking movies, Beat Street. So we were seeing these movies as kids, and then that's what all my friends were into. So recess in third grade was about
where
putting
were
down.
You?
I was in Santa Barbara in California. So by the time I reached the West Coast, I'm in grade school. And it went national. And third grade was about putting down some cardboard to do your backspins for the Beat Street soundtrack. And then, you know, Run DMC kept it going, and the Beastie Boys. So I had Run DMC, Raising Hell on one side of the cassette, and Beastie Boys License to Ill on the other side of the cassette. You listen to one, flip it over, listen to the other, memorize Paul Revere. Because you knew when you got to school in the hallway, somebody would start rapping that.
Yes.
Here's a little story I got to tell, and you got to jump in and put something down. So that really seeped in there, and I got so into the sound of it was incredible. The samples, the loops, the beats, sounding so unique and taking things in new directions. So I became a producer and a beat maker, but I always had these urges to say, you know, this would sound cool with a pedal steel guitar or a fiddle on it. And I always wanted to mix things in like that. And eventually had to try it out on my own because nobody else was going for that. So,
well, Santa Barbara is not exactly a mecca of bluegrass. So when did the bluegrass influence start?
Well, that's just kind of tracing things back when you're really into stuff.
Yeah.
I grew up more into honky tonk from my dad's influence. So I listened to a lot of George Jones and Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and that kind of stuff. You know, being really into music, one thing that I would do that I think a lot of musicians do is once you get into somebody, you say, okay, well, who were their influences? Like who inspired them to do this? And you look at, okay, well, they were listening to the Louvin brothers, or they were listening to Bill Monroe or something. And you'd start listening to those guys and go, oh yeah, I see that was coming from this. And this is really cool too. And so yeah, it was around after I was in college around 2000, I was tracing back a lot of roots like that and started listening to a lot of Ralph Stanley Brothers stuff, and just hearing how well it could fit in with beats and rhymes and stuff.
Yeah.
Rench, what was we learned what Arson's cool 80s 70s style rap name was. What was your MC DJ name? We all had one. So
Rench goes way back. Started off with a W, but I dropped that just to make it more of a recognizable name. Which I've always experimented with a lot of stuff. So I was listening to hip hop a lot, also listening to a lot of industrial music, and so mid to late 90s, like that was the end thing, man. Name yourself after a tool or a piece of industrial equipment or something. So, so Nine Inch Nails was cool, and Ministry, and a lot of stuff like that, listening to people that were experimenting with different sounds.
Nice.
So you never started out with like DJ Greasy, ground lift?
No, no, unfortunately not. I just kind of, went with that. I was in a lot of bands, but once sort of picking a solo name, I just I kind of just take something and stick with it. And even when it's outdated, I'll just keep going with it.
I like it. John, what was your crazy MC or DJ name?
Well, hold on. Before we do that, I just want to say we just got a comment from the Wesinator.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I love these guys. Let's work together. He's an audio engineer based in London.
All right. Looks like Sonic Cuisine something. Yeah.
Cool. Wes is anybody who works with
Wes, legit.
They never leave. They always stay with them. Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, if we gotta go back to the UK, why not?
We're just waiting. We got our fingers crossed for going to the UK in the fall, and it would be great to link up. So you guys can put us in touch. Yeah.
Done.
Man, if you guys are going to the UK in the fall, I will too.
Yeah. All right.
I'm currently playing in a cover band. We do all British Invasion stuff from both British Invasions. And so we're waiting for an excuse to go back to London because our guitar player's from London. So we'll go back at the same time. Wes will host us for whatever debauchery we're into.
John, MC or DJ name? Go ahead.
No, I didn't have an MC or DJ name because when I was growing up, everybody called me Sonny. So I was just Sonny everywhere. So I didn't have anything. I wasn't like MC Pop Rivet or anything like that. It was that would have been cooler.
Pop Rivet is dope, though. I like that.
We're staying with the industrial themes. Now, when you guys scored the theme song from Justified, which was an awesome show and really kind of updated the feel of that. I mean, I don't really know how to express that, but if you took like the feel of Kentucky and then just made it super like updated as if it was a comic book, that's what Justified was. And then all of a sudden you guys had the music that matched it perfectly. Did that cement your mission and allow you to say, okay, we have a launching pad now, we know we're doing something right? Or was it before that? Did you know that before that?
Hey, this is P.A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here, and if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
Did that cement your mission and allow you to say, okay, we have a launching pad now, we know we're doing something right? Or was it before that? Did you know that before that?
Well, it was already in motion because the initial Gangstagrass thing that I put up for free download had taken off so well, just getting hundreds of thousands of downloads, getting blogged about on a bunch of places to where it was getting so much attention that I knew, okay, this is something I should go with this because people are really responding to this. So I was in the process already of thinking, okay, I'm getting more musicians involved in this so we can turn it into more of a band and stuff. When I got the call from the FX network saying, we're looking for the guy that made this Gangstagrass stuff. We want to use it for a commercial for this show. And I said, cool, let's license it for you and do it. And they put a track that I'd done into this commercial for Justified. And one of the producers of the show saw the commercial. They said, that's what we need for the theme song. So I got another call out of the blue saying, do a new one for us that's like that. And so it was great. And it just fit into where I knew, it definitely was time to roll this out and take it as far as it can go. And it was really crucial in getting us fans in every city in the country and in countries around the world where we are able to go and go on tour and play for a good crowd of people everywhere.
I'd love to see you guys at places like Glastonbury or any of these really, really big places.
Yeah.
Because you cross over, you're right. Like I don't know what the biggest bluegrass festival is, but you guys need an even more diverse group, I would say.
We're good. Well, yeah, we'll be getting in there, man. We're gonna keep invading every space we can. We played some big bluegrass festivals like Gray Fox upstate here, and it's been amazingly fun. The UK plan in September is to be at the Long Road Festival, which is kind of one of the big Americana style festivals there. So we're going to be on some very cool stages. The international tours have been amazing. We played a festival in Germany for just an amazingly big crowd of people that went wild. And so yeah, we're going to keep at it. And I will say also on the Justified theme song that it was like the perfect kind of exposure for us as well, that people are watching the TV show and this music comes on for 30 seconds. And then they can go, oh, that's cool. What is that? And look it up, because we have kind of a stumbling block in trying to promote the music by telling people about it. And they say, oh, come check this out. It's bluegrass and hip hop. They imagine something really bad and they start running in the other direction. Like, no, do not play that for me. I don't want to hear it. That's going to be terrible. So the best thing is for them to just hear it and then be like, oh, I like this. Because that's a crucial thing, is for people to actually hear the way we do it.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's got to be, you got to hear it.
Yeah, because you'll never
have to hear it first.
People always underestimate it if they're just thinking, based on the description. It's when they actually hear it that is way different than they expected, and they say, "Oh my God, that's actually works. I'm down with this." And so that's one of my favorite kinds of the comments that we get sometimes on the YouTube channels or stuff. But it's not too infrequent that people are like, "I came here to make fun of this, and now I just bought 3 albums, and I'm a new fan."
Yeah, it happens a lot.
That's when you get to say, "I got you, you motherfucker."
Yeah.
It happens a lot. Between that and YouTube polls, people are like, "I came on here looking for something, and then fell down this rabbit hole, and now here I am." Yeah.
That's me.
10 videos deep.
Yeah, me too.
The one thing I've learned though is that, like, with a lot of bands doing this, taking these chances, you really can find something really magical, and you get to carve out your audience and then slowly carve a bigger and bigger hole. But we've had Natalie Dawn from Pomplamoose on, and they've made a living crushing it on YouTube by mashups and covers. Yeah. But I wouldn't. It's not even fair to call what they do a cover. They really rewrite the entire song. And then another band. And again, you can laugh at it, but when you hear it, you have to love it to do. I love Metalachi. John and I sat in a Hollywood parking lot late at night, stoned out of his mind. And they're just like, what are we doing? Listening to song after song after song. Like when they do Hot for Teacher, if you're at that show, you're going to love it. Like there's no way around it. I can totally see. And I saw when I watched your videos, why you guys are so great live.
Yeah.
The other thing about international stages. The other thing about international stages and why, to expand on Pete's point, I want to see you guys on all of the international stages because that's what I want people to think America really is.
Yeah.
The
funny part about rocking out overseas, for a lot of hip hop cats that aren't like the most pop sounding hip hop stuff. A lot of guys that I came up listening to, some guys that I actually know that I shared stages with, have moved overseas and are doing quite well overseas, making the kind of music that they make because it's very much just they're so into it, and the people over there are like, it's different, it's dope, it's whatever, and they really stay involved with it. And so when we go overseas, those people, a lot of those people are, are already fans of like a lot of random stuff that have been about for years, and they're like, oh no, okay, I dig that, so I dig that kind of sound, and so it sticks with them. And so that's the few times we've gone to the UK and over to Europe, we had such a great time, and the people just reacted. It was very much like, oh, this is different. This is fun. And I'm hoping to get more of that from American audiences, where they just sort of let it hit them. It doesn't have to sound like something else that you listen to all the time. Just listen to it and be impressed by it.
Sometimes, unfortunately, the audiences abroad have a better picture of America than Americans do. I mean, we had just last weekend, we had Susie Quattro on the show. And people don't know who she is over here, but in Europe, she sold 50 million albums.
Wow!
So yeah, it's something that I think that's where you guys, I want to say, represent. What's real about America, because as I listen to your stuff, what it seems like to me is that you took bluegrass and said, okay, now just lean back. Mm-hmm. And you made bluegrass lean back. And then you asked hip hop to lean into it. Mm-hmm. And what you got was this marriage that's a sound that's familiar, but so different. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's lovable. And I think that's what's translatable.
Yeah.
Well, the idea, and I got this from, I really did get this from Rench. The idea is that the people that are making these musics, right? The people that are making, bluegrass music, and the people that are making hip hop music are a lot more similar than they realize. So musically, the things that they're doing are going to be more similar. Their existence is more similar, right? The objects that they're using to make the music aren't the same oftentimes, but their experiences are very much the same, right? So you've got a lot of similar stories on both sides that, like you were saying before, if you heard a certain bluegrass song, somebody rapping it, the song itself, the idea of the song wouldn't change very much, mm-hmm. and vice versa. We talk about a lot how when people were kind of afraid of hip hop and how violent it is, so on and so forth, forgetting the fact that, bluegrass has its own subgenre of murder ballads. Like, that's a thing. Like, yeah. Okay. Gangsta rap, murder ballads. They seem kind of similar, right? So
also stories about being broke.
Yeah, stories about being broke, stories mm-hmm. about heartbreak and all this mm-hmm. other just kind of stuff that everybody goes through, right? So, once you sort of immerse yourself into the song itself, and I won't say ignore the sound, because the sound is a part of it. But once you sort of just immerse yourself in the nature of the song itself, they're way more similar than they are different.
Yeah. And
so you just have to, like Rench was saying, you have to hear it. Like, telling somebody about it, not the easiest thing in the world. But hearing it's 99% of the time they're like, oh yeah, okay, that's dope. Every now and again you get one or two that are like, no, can't do it. But for the most part, our batting average is pretty darn good.
I'll say for sure. And you're making a great point about bluegrass, country, all these other genres that have a lot of dangerous themes in it. I mean, in Red-Headed Stranger, the dude murders 3 people and nothing happens to him. Just like,
yeah.
She touched my horse, so I shot her in the fucking face.
Yeah, and everybody can quote, Johnny Cash saying, "I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die."
Yeah, and that's only one of them that he shot.
Right.
Yeah. When you're writing a rap, what point of view are you taking? Does it move around? Is it yours? Do you try to bring in like a more country or bluegrass sensibility? Like, how does that work for your writing when you specifically write, Arson?
I just write. If we have a specific idea to the song, Never Go Home Again, I specifically wrote, and nickel and dime blues, I specifically. But for the most part, if I'm writing something specifically, I can do that. But for the most part, it's just a matter of finding a place to start and then going from there. And it can literally be anything, like a word that I heard from that to something I saw on TV, whatever. But I got a song called Lexicon that I started off with the word laboratory that I heard somebody else say, and then I flipped it to laboratory, and I built the whole song off of that. And so it just it's if it's something specific that we're doing, cool. But for the most part, it's just if I hear something and I'm like, oh, you know what, that's a great word. How do I build around that word to create something and then make it work? And then sometimes it'll be older stuff that I can take apart and rebuild for a specific thing that we're doing with Gangstagrass. It's just a matter of just sort of playing with words. That's my favorite thing in the world to do. And so you'll see, I'm actually doing that right now. Like as I'm looking down, I'm hearing you guys say stuff, and I'm like, all right, let me write that word down, and then try and build something off it later, because it really does just keeps me sharp. Like I said, hanging out with Dole, it just keeps me sharp.
It's just different ways that we digest rhythms, because you hear lyrically and rhythmically, and Rench hears musically, but also rhythmically. And then you guys have managed to figure out where that meeting point is, where you can contribute to each other. And I keep going back to this theme, but man, that's what that's what America is supposed to be.
Yeah,
that's the American ideal, sort of expressed musically. Mm-hmm. I saw that you guys had a live stream for the election.
Yeah.
How did that go? Because I wasn't tuned in at the time, but how did it go? What did you do?
We've been hanging out every Friday night on a live stream just to chat, play games, have some friends come on as special guests, do our thing to be able to connect with fans and people watching. And we said, why don't we do this on election night? Just because everybody's going to be looking for something to plug into and watch. And everybody's going to be stressed out and whatever. And we can have a fun conversation. We can keep it light and, and keep an eye on, any developments, but also be doing funny stuff and playing.
Yeah. If something drastic happens, you're going to let everybody know.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you can hang out.
Yeah. I mean, we knew
more fun than everybody else.
And people knew that we weren't going to know the final result on election night. So we knew it would just be, for the most part, just be hanging out, watching stuff kind of trickle in. And, but it's just kind of election night was election night. That's what everybody wanted to, kind of tune into and talk about. So we talked about that, and then we talked about something else. And we talked about that, and we play a game, and just, kept spirits high.
Okay. When you say you played a game,
mm-hmm.
What?
So we there was some suggestion of us playing Among Us, which we punted on because we weren't sure if we had the tech set up to do it. Some phone games where somebody draws and somebody else has to guess what it is. Just like party games, board games, whatever. I put in a couple graphics of predictions about the election outcome that were wildly wrong. But maybe we'll come true someday.
Not wildly wrong, because he had the country striped. It was like blue, red, and it's not. It's like one big blue stripe, one big red stripe, and one little blue stripe.
Yeah, no, we gotta make smaller stripes. That's what we gotta do.
We need smaller stripes.
Mix it up a little.
Uh-huh. Hey, Rench, I want to ask you. We did so the Roland 808 was inducted into the Tech Award Hall of Fame for NAMM. So because of that, because of what we did with those guys, we did a basically like a biography of the 808 through the eyes of musicians. We had Egyptian Lover on. John found the guy that basically invented it. Mm-hmm. He took what the machine was, like a drum machine, and he's like, "This is not what we need," and he totally changed it. What are your thoughts on the 808? And then are we going to hear a bunch of that in bluegrass, and do those things work together?
We're hearing it in pop country right now a lot. And so, eventually someday it might be in bluegrass. Bluegrass tends to lag behind because there are a lot of traditionalists where people say, oh, bluegrass is only these kind of things. For a long time, you weren't supposed to have any drums in bluegrass, right? So that was like a boundary that was only broken at some point. But I think of the 808 sounds as sort of in a way like an instrument that was introduced into the culture, like a particular sound that is now just part of the palette that people use and integrate into something. And I think it's got its wonderful place in giving that booming kick that also has a tone to it, or those kind of 808 snares are a very distinct sound that you can have in your palette to play with. And I do that some. I integrate some, and I think people do great things with it. I think there's sometimes where people use it as a crutch too much, where it's just the 808 sounds that you've heard before, and you can just say, okay, that's an 808 beat. Like,
I'm going to remake my favorite Too Short album.
And and it's not to put down the 808 sounds, because those are fine. But I love, like, you take your 808 beat and then you like put this other loop into it and like add another sound or chop it up or something like that, because there's always more you can do with it. And it's disappointing when it becomes such a thing that people just do the same thing with it over and over again.
Yeah, as so many have. Years ago, I found myself at the Bluegrass Museum in Owensboro, Kentucky. And that was many years ago. There was a lot of traditional stuff in there, and it was cool. But I'm really interested to see how your presence will at some point change that museum. Any thoughts about that?
No, I mean, I'm just gonna say whatever happens is what's gonna happen. Like, right now, we're just out there to make some music that we like to make, and whatever effect that has on bluegrass or hip hop or anything is the effect it has. I certainly don't go into the studio like trying to tailor something to like, oh, this is how it's gonna change this for bluegrass with me. I'm just trying to bring to life the sounds that I like to hear. And they come out a certain way, and I say, well, that's it. That's what I like. Let's put it out. I think people will like it. And then you just say, it's going to do what it's going to do to the world.
Yeah. Arson, when you guys first met, was there any amount of time where you thought, man, this guy Rench is bananas, and then you had to get over that? Or was it immediate?
I still think that every day.
Yeah.
Okay. I still think that every day. This guy's he's a madman, but I love it. I love it so much. Because, I've been telling my kids this for a while now. Most of the normal people, they're not very interesting.
Not very interesting.
Right? Yeah. I like my folks a little bit on the edge, and the edge. Rench walked away from the edge a long time ago. He just walked right off it and kept walking. That's the great part. He just kept on going.
Like Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, right. But just kept going, and that's how our whole squad is, man. And I do feel blessed that we are able to, stay on this level of madness, right? But still maintain, I know cats that been in bands where like the one guy was a little bit weird, but he was like too much cocaine weird, right? And it's just like there's none of that. There's just it's a lot of just a lot of perfectly normal wacky. It's just very. It would make a great cartoon. We'd make an amazing cartoon, or just the best reality show ever. That was just kind of goofy. Case in point, 5 years ago when we the first time we charted, when American music charted, the six of us at the time were dancing around in a parking lot at a Qdoba in Indiana, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
When we found out, and there's video that's us just losing our mind. That doesn't happen. That's not something you just randomly do. But it was so very natural, and we've been blessed enough to have a collective of people, and particularly now a collective of people, the five five of us in the band, and our tour manager and jack of all trades and human Swiss Army knife sleeves that tours with us, to really just, in the midst of all of our different sort of madnesses, still be able to create some beautiful stuff, man. I love it. I love it. And, you know, keep it going. Keep it. I don't want anybody to be like, well, today I'm just going to, you know, take my briefcase to work and then I'll go back to the studio. No. None of that.
I have one more question from me, and then I'll let John ask whatever he wants. But what happens in regular times when we can get back to get on the road? What happens at a Gangstagrass show? Tell us what the experience is.
Oh, bro, it's the greatest thing in the world. I miss touring so much. I miss that when that first note hits, and again, it depends on the show. Like some of the shows, you know, they know we're there, and you know, as soon as something starts, people lose their mind. Other times, you know, when we're new to people, that's my favorite. When we're new and people are like, okay, I came here for this, and when that first song is over, and the people are like, what was that? That's my thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
And and this is another story I tell all the time. Everybody in this band plays multiple instruments. Everybody in this band can sing really well, except me. I play nothing. I can't sing to save my life. But what I can do is rhyme. And I'm gonna tip my cap to myself. I can rhyme my ass off.
By all means,
and
yes.
So I miss freestyling for people. I miss just, you know, somebody catching. I miss the reaction when somebody catches the fact that I'm talking about them in a verse. And I miss surprising the band with stuff. You know, I every now and again I'll catch these guys with some stuff and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I miss all of that. It's such the energy of touring and performing is so. It like not being able to tour is one thing, but then being like trapped at home is a whole other. So now my energy levels are kind of off. So that first show is just gonna be. And it could be like, it could be in a parking lot somewhere. It's still going to be nuts.
It's going to be nuts. That is one thing I would definitely, you know, let people know who are not sure about coming to a Gangstagrass show is that we're able to do stuff that makes every show different. That will pull out things that you're not expecting. So people that come to Gangstagrass shows thinking, oh, they're just going to like play the songs. Are always blown away. We see people who come knowing our recordings and still have their jaws drop when we play because we're tapping into the fact that bluegrass and hip hop both have these strong improvisational traditions. Where in bluegrass you'd have people sitting around and they could name a traditional tune or chord progression and pass around solos, and it's called a pick. And in hip hop you can have some cat standing on a corner and somebody beatboxes and they can trade rhymes back and forth and pass verses around. That's called a cipher. Those two are basically the same thing. Like our son was saying, these like are different traditions that actually came out of similar situations and people learning how to create a genre of music where they can come together spontaneously and just share in the making of it. And so we tap into that, and you're going to see us start off playing one of our songs, and then our son's going to start freestyling the second verse. It's not going to be the verse that's on the album. He's going to be talking about things that people in the audience are wearing, things that were happening that day. And people are going to be like, wait, what? That can't be the recording because he just rapped about my shirt right now. And he's going to be going on. And they're going to see that, you know, me and the banjo player and the fiddle player, we're looking at each other like, okay, he's freestyling. Okay, he's gone 16 bars. He's gone 24 bars. He's gone 32 bars. And he's going to like do a little thing. We're like, okay, that's it. And we jump in. The chorus hits right then. And, you know, we just go into it. And we're playing off of each other. And they're going to see, you know, rappers that can do a verse and then just like point to the fiddle player. Take it. Fiddle player can do a solo. And we can restructure the whole song on the fly during the show, break it down, talk to the audience. And I think people come away from that being really amazed to go to a show like this with rappers and bluegrass players and see how much we're able to integrate just playing off of each other and make it a whole spontaneous thing. You're going to see us just being spontaneous and making stuff really unique every show.
Well, see, this is the thing. Right now we're in a pandemic, and I know that a show like that is going to cause people to hug and love and trade fluids. So, we kind of got to get through this
We're going to have
so we can get back to
a wave of Gangstagrass babies after that show.
That's right. That's right.
That is the
so yeah.
And we're just itching, man. When it is a situation that we're touring again, we're going to hit it hard because we do have all of this pent up playing live energy that we want to get out and get back to all these places that we were going to go to, plus new places that are going to get booked, and we're just gonna fill it up and get around to as many places as we can.
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of getting around to many places, we've had you for an hour. So a couple of things I want to say. First of all, I'm serious about going to England in the fall. So if you guys are booking stuff, I'm going to book something and give us a reason to go out there. So I want to make sure that we hook up out there. Now that I am the biggest Gangstagrass fan, will you guys come back on? Because we got much more to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it is you're promoting. And then lastly, I will say that for everybody, if you haven't already, check out No Time for Enemies. It's the new Gangstagrass album, and there's a collection so you can go back, including last year's live album, and really get familiar with this great body of work. And I hope everybody comes along because you guys, like I said in the beginning, will come full circle. This is exactly what America should be.
I want to say one more thing, too. I lied about my one last question. Arson.
Yep. You got to tell us about this tent that you're in, too.
Oh, I will in a sec, sure.
Okay.
Arson, the 8-0 Phillies or the 08 Phillies?
08.
All right.
Yeah. I love that 80 squad, but Ryan Howard was my dude, man.
Okay.
Ryan Howard brought baseball back to me personally. I love that guy. He's my favorite player of all time. And I was a Schmitty guy for a long time, but Ryan Howard brought me back to baseball. I love that dude.
Mike Schmidt and Utley get into a fight. Who wins?
Schmidt, because he's older and he would cheat. Although Chase Utley would be cursing the whole time. My favorite moment in sports history was at the parade, and they're live, and he's like, "World champions, world fucking champions," and the whole place goes nuts, and nobody, not even realized, hey, you're on live television now.
Right. Nobody cared.
That was the Philliest thing ever. I loved it.
Hey, I'm from Vallejo, California. What's up, Vallejo? Hometown of Tug McGraw.
Oh, Tugger!
Tugger!
Tugger!